Each year, Washington draws millions of visitors, many angling to strike a position along the tidal basin amidst new cherry blossoms that practically smother the air for a week or so. In 1909, a Japanese mayor gifted 2,000 plus cherry blossoms to Washington, D.C. as a token of friendship between Japan and the United States. The trees, or sakura, arrived shortly afterward but were discovered to be diseased. A second contribution was accomplished in 1912. Subsequent donations have been made. The U.S. made a counter-donation of flowering dogwood trees to Japan. The first actual cherry blossom festival in the capital of the U.S. occurred in 1927. The beauty of the cherry blossom is a symbol in Japanese culture. Appropriately, in my view, cherry blossoms are a motif of contradiction, both birth and death, beauty and violence. Renewal, in a sense, is the overriding lesson. Cherry blossoms are very short-lived. Hence, visitors to Washington anticipating a springtime blossoms walk may sometimes fail to realize their objective due to unpredictable weather or mistiming. There is also the looming congestion of traffic and pedestrians that can be a challenge to even the most robust of flora admirers. As implied already, Washington metaphorically hosts the symbolism of these blooming trees. Japan's samurai warrior class embraced the moral code of honor, respect, and discipline, called Bushido. The way of the warrior was to embody the virtues while fearlessly accepting the inevitability of death. A fallen cherry blossom symbolized the end of the warrior's short lives. Japanese pilots in World War II painted their kamikaze planes with the blooms before going on suicide missions to, quote, die like beautiful falling cherry petals for the emperor, unquote. The selfless warrior spirit in the U.S. is represented by images other than flowers and is subtly celebrated across the city of Washington's landscape today. During and after the American Revolution, 13 colonies became states along the eastern Atlantic coast. The foreign matrix of commerce, religious affiliations, and governing assemblies, and just raw individualism, fed by grassroots idealism, took hold among the coastal plains and Appalachian highlands. The middle colonies, New England colonies, and southern colonies, as states, created a framework of stability and relative safety for the new citizens, including a scattering of still resident Native American populations. In the immediate aftermath of the war, many of those now pacified and in many cases Christianized Indian communities drifted or migrated westward anyway, over the Allegheny Mountains to the Ohio country, and then to the Northwest Territories. Lingerers were gradually induced to follow by force of cultural persuasion or direct offers of money for land. settlers followed and even led the way. The Ohio River Basin became the next stronghold of entrepreneurs, traders, farmers, and militias. Skirmishes between Europeans and Native Americans were common and often brutal, as had been the social confrontations of the first colonists. Indian migration, even further west, continued in a fruitless anticipation of finding happier hunting grounds. Eventually, the mighty Mississippi River loomed as a beckoning challenge to adventurers, explorers, and then settlers too. Here was not only an artery linking the French-Canadian woods to the north with the Spanish south, but also demarcating a change in geography from tightly packed forests and bushy meadowlands to vast, seemingly endless plains. Our account of the pioneer colonial history of the 17th and 18th centuries so far has surveyed this first phase of the modern development of North American culture and commerce. The next account, or book, will follow the pioneers and explorers past the Mississippi into the 19th century, an encounter with the, quote, Wild West. President Thomas Jefferson especially helped make the Missouri, the Niobrara, the Yellowstone, and Columbia rivers the new arteries luring settlers toward the final destiny, the Pacific Ocean. Before following their quests and conquests, here I am providing as an appendix only an anecdotal review of the legacy of the early states of the U.S. The Middle States collected most of the political and military thinkers of the 18th century America around the cities of Philadelphia and Washington and the Chesapeake Bay region, with Washington and the District of Columbia selected as the head of government. Mostly in photographs, we are looking at the modern 21st century capital of the United States and its neighboring environs. We already have explored some of Virginia, once considered to be a mother of states, as its lands extended far into the American interior. The Chesapeake and Delaware Bay basins fostered large and larger plantations and ocean trade up and down the Atlantic waterways. The Potomac and Susquehanna rivers thrust like daggers into the Alleghenies, leading to the establishment of makeshift national roads and pathways linking up with the next geographical wonders of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River. New York State's Hudson River, further north, ensured that New York City would eventually claim mastery over the international commercial trading world. And Boston hosted New England's best intellectual and legal talent, while also being a hub for gathering many savvy, and one might say, quote, courageous, colonizers looking toward the West for new settlement and development after the war with England ended. Finally, the southern colonies faced diverse challenges of their own, as a slave culture took hold in order to secure vast plantation production of foods and fiber. Indian removals there, by various means, began in particular earnest around the 1830s, and sentiment of disenfranchisement by northern disrespect took hold, leading to the catastrophic Civil War of the 1860s. As the new government of the Revolution took hold in Washington, in the 1780s there was plenty of oratory and wrangling to bring order to the colonial disorder that prevail up and down the Atlantic coast, and to some extent in the Appalachian interior. Our narrative so far of the pioneering and frontier expansion, especially in the eastern North American woodlands and meadows, has elevated mostly the non-Spanish and non-French flavor of colonial rebellion against the perceived mostly English tyranny. 13 colonies emerged as states immediately, but the inhabitants were not only English by any means. Nevertheless, stark individualism mixed with often religious-driven idealism inspired the new leaders of the new republic. Washington, D.C. has ever since been the symbolic hub of this uniquely American design for democracy, initially enshrining what was determined to be a somewhat feeble government to be advised by a robust collection of relatively self-sufficient satellite communities. But the manifest destiny dreams rapidly set in, and the conundrums of just governance multiplied well into the 19th century and beyond.